Our next guest today is Bart Mattingly, who is just received the Agriculture Leader Award from the Springfield, Washington County Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
Welcome, Bart.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, Bart, of course, when I see you, all I can think about is when you were a little boy and you'd be, helping your dad with the tractor or something. So
Right.
You've been around farming your entire life.
Right. My father has farmed essentially full-time his entire life in raising cattle and a large emphasis on tobacco. I can always remember growing up, the kind of Christmas that we would have in the family would be a direct reflection of the type of growing season we had in tobacco. His father farmed, and so a lot of his brothers farm, and it's kind of been the way of life in the Mattinglys through Marion and Washington County, so something I'm very proud of.
Did you think when you were little that you would go into farming? Did you always have the
I
desire?
always did. Of course, I was a pretty standard, 5 or 7 year old that had this set of tractors, playing tractors all the time. Agriculture was always something that I had an interest in. Farming in particular was something I always wanted to do, and both of my parents insisted that, if you want to farm, that's fine, but you've got to go to college and get a degree and be educated and do that, and then, if you want to come back and farm, that's a possibility too. So that's kind of the track that I followed. So.
Well, of course, your parents are Mike and Cheryl, and like you said, Mike's father farmed, and then Mike farmed. Now, did Mike farm full-time, or did he work elsewhere also?
He has generally farmed primarily full-time his whole life. He's invested in some other interests as far as contracting, doing some things of that sort. Still ag business related. For a short period, he worked over at Lawson Implement in Lebanon, where he sold farm equipment. But he has essentially been involved in agriculture and farmed full-time since he was out of high school. And then my mother, she worked for Rick Downs for several years as an assistant to accountant, and then for the last 20 years plus, she's been at the extension office,
right,
where she has worked under the ag agent and natural resource agent there at the extension office. So that was kind of my link to the University of Kentucky. Through that, I was able to see the value of education and leadership in itself. She implanted that 4-H was a big thing. As she worked at the extension office, we always had a pretty close link to 4-H, and then took that and moved into FFA as a high school student, and capitalized on those opportunities. And ag and farming has just always been coming from mom and dad both, and been a big factor of my life.
Yeah. So you graduated from the University of Kentucky, but now you're a teacher.
Correct.
And you teach
agriculture and FFA as the extracurricular club. So a lot of the things that we do in the classroom are FFA related. So for example, right now in one of my animal science classes, we're learning how to evaluate breeding and market animals, and then we'll take that to a competition level that we actually host here in Washington County on March 11th. It's a partnership with FFA and 4-H out at the Washington County Stockyards. We will have close to 300 kids from across the state come in, 25 to 30 high school kids from Washington County, and then the remaining balance being kids from all across the state. Henry County to Carlisle will come into Washington County, and they will evaluate and rank a set of livestock animals. So that's kind of the stepping stone that we try to teach something in class, how to evaluate and rank traits of animals, and then apply it with that judging contest. So that's just kind of an example of how 4-H and FFA helps build young leaders in that particular area, and then several other opportunities too through the greenhouse and in the plant systems pathway. And so doing a lot of the same things that I'd learned in 4-H, in trying to teach that in the classroom and apply that as well. So,
well, it's so good to be able to apply it? Will you all go out to the stockyards or? Okay.
Right. What we do, we get some of our local farmers to bring in a set of 4 animals at the stockyards on that day. It's a Saturday morning, and we'll get a set of cattle and a set of sheep and a set of pigs brought from area and local farmers, and then our kids will judge those. And like we said, application to me is everything. Textbooks, they can go so far, and some kids prefer reading things off publications or textbooks or the internet, but a lot of a big percentage of your kids, when they can apply and see and do, that's when they learn.
The hands-on experience.
Exactly.
Means a whole lot.
Exactly. So.
Well, and Bart, I think that agriculture. We've had several guests on Channel 6 to discuss agriculture, because we are an agriculture community, Washington County, but agriculture. Whenever I talk with agricultural leaders like yourself, talk about how agriculture has evolved.
Right.
And so when I was talking with you about your dad, people used to farm full time, and still, these big operations do. But you have a lot of farmers that because of all the equipment and things you have these days. I mean, you've got a full-time job outside of farming.
Right. It's fun to teach the kids. In my ag business pathway, we look at that, and quite frankly, I think any farmer would tell you, or agriculturalist would tell you, that we are getting ready to enter into some trying times economically in farming. The last 10 or 12 years since I've been farming on as a part-time side job, it's been relatively easy to turn dollars over and make an efficient amount of money, part-time or full-time, because we saw the grain spike in 2007 up until around 2012 on the account of ethanol and the demand, global demand. Cattle prices have been through the roof, up until about 2 years ago, and as we all know, the last 10 years, tobacco is starting to kind of phase out of the dependency. And so what I try to teach to these kids in an ag business direction or pathway is the importance of being technologically advanced, being efficient, managing money, utilizing global positioning system, analyzing all options. Whereas in the older days, the only option I think that our farmers had, and maybe my grandfather's era, was diversity. Diversity was technology. And I tell the kids that in that era, it was you woke up and you milked the cows so that you'd have oat milk for your oatmeal, and you gathered the eggs and you fed the hogs and went to school. And there was a lot of truth to that. And in some cases, diversity is still an important factor of agriculture today, but also it's being educated on different seed genetics, being well trained on conservation methods and conserving soil and being able to apply that education. And it's a lot of fun to teach the kids and to see them say, hey, if I want to pursue a career in agriculture, it's not just graduate high school or finish the ninth grade and go milk a cow every day.
Yeah.
And that's fun to teach. Kind of building on what you said too, I teach my ninth graders early in school that if you're going to stay in Washington County, 2 things that you need to open your eye up to are industry and agriculture. And if you look at a lot of our strong leaders, I think they capitalize in one or both of those areas, whether it's industrial or it's agricultural, because I think that's our foundation here in Washington County. I think that's a big part of our society.
Well, we do have, I think we have a pretty big percentage in this county, if I'm not mistaken, of farmers for the population.
Right, I agree.
And I think I always say that, it's in your blood. I don't know, I think your ancestors were probably farmers way back in England or Ireland, because I think that that a lot of people, I've met many people here in Washington County, farmers, who went off and got educated in other careers. And then they, eventually came back and started farming because it's just in their blood.
Right. And that's the type of kids that I see that have an ag class or involved in FFA are amazing kids on their drive and work ethic. Kind of brings me to a lot of times towards the end of the year, I will get more than a dozen calls from industry or business or even colleges in some cases, but from Springfield locally, a lot of industry will call me and say, Bart, these kids, we're looking for an internship to get a kid into college to be in industrial maintenance. And what kids do you have that are interested in industry that have that ag background? They want that foundation.
Because of their work ethic.
Because of their work ethic, exactly what you explained. The kid that's willing to wake up in the morning in the summer and go help a farmer house tobacco or go bale hay, that's the kid that Barber Cabinet wants. It's we've been able to hook up those kids with managers from Toyotomi. That's the drive that they want. The kid that has gotten up every day, comes to work with good mentality, and a lot of times it's that ag bloodline you're talking about.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And they'll go and work in industrial maintenance all day and come home and farm at night.
Work 65 hours a week.
That's exactly right.
At Toyotomi, and then come home 15 hours a week.
That's right.
And farm.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of kid that makes me proud too. And again, to me, that's a leader as well. Somebody that's willing to do that for their family.
Yeah. So now, and of course, you farm in addition to working all day and teaching. You got your degree was from UK in agriculture.
Agriculture education. Got a minor in ag economics. That's kind of my strength is business and economics. And then I do farm any available time I can.
Do you have cows? Or, okay.
I have some of my own cows with my wife and I do. We still raise tobacco. I enjoy the drive and the challenge of tobacco. After a long day at work, it's pretty soothing to come home and load my two sons up and go feed the cows or put out some mineral. And that's really a really good stress reliever on a long day. In the springtime to see that first calf.
Now you all have you and Kristen.
Jesse.
I'm all mixed up today. Lord, you and Jessica have how many? Two.
We have two boys, 3 and 6. It's
okay.
It's Weston is 6 and Kaysen is 3, and those two boys love farming too. They like to go out and like I said, feed the cows, and whether it's getting a cow in and pulling a calf, a lot of times that's it's part of raising kids on a farm, and so
yeah.
It makes for many late nights because it might be rushing home to get some feeding done while it's daylight and going back to school to a board meeting or some type of alumni meeting, and then coming back home and doing what needs to be done to get things ready for the morning. There's been several crazy late nights on the farm, and my wife.
The farm families that are listening to this relate very well.
That's right.
Yes,
I don't see how, a lot of times, they did it before. I'm doing the same thing my grandfather did, and a lot of people listening have done. But if you're going to sign up for farming, it's a lot of long, late nights, and that's one thing that we've had to realize.
Yeah. Is Jessie still working in
Lexington
some?
She was working for a company called KVC Behavioral Health out of Shelbyville. And in January, she just took the position here in the county as the Family Resource Coordinator. So she's working for the school district now.
Okay, great.
And so she's able to help out a lot of families and work with kids too. That's kind of her specialty is being able to connect resources and needs with kids and families.
I think Jessie's degree was in social work.
Right.
Wasn't it?
It was in family sciences, family studies.
Okay.
Essentially social work. And so a lot of times we cross paths now through the school and have kind of brought that, we're glad to get her back home the same way.
Yeah.
5 years ago, I was able to come back home and
Yeah.
help a lot of people out, is what we're trying to do.
Well, I'm just so glad you came back home. We need you young people here, and I'm just glad that you all have decided to make Washington County your home. Bart, and both of you all have your families here,
Right.
and so you got a lot of good support from
Right.
not only your families but the community, and so they of course decided to recognize you with that award,
Right.
and most deserving.
Well, I'm extremely proud to be back home. When I moved away and went to school at UK for 4 years, it was, at first it was how quick can you get away when you're in high school, and then it's when you're away for a year or two, it's how quick can you get to your next step. And my next step always in my mind was to get back home. I love working with the ag community here. I love working with the business community, and I have found that industry, I'm able to work with those guys very well, and you know how to build relationships at home because it means so much to you. I was glad to be able to work for 5 years. I worked over in Bergen in Mercer County and was able to kind of develop some roots of my own and find out some of my own strengths and weaknesses. And then when the opportunity arose, I jumped on that opportunity to come back home and haven't thought twice about it since.
Yeah.
So,
How long have you been back here now?
This is my 6th year. School will be over before we know it, so that would have complete 6 years.
6 years that you've been at Washington County?
Washington County.
Wow, Washington County High School. Okay.
Been there for 6 years, and then there was 5 years over at Bergen Independent School, and so time flies.
Gosh, Bart, you're getting old.
I know. Retirement right around the corner, hon.
Yeah.
No, not wishing
No,
it
it
away.
won't be a while. It'll be a
Yeah,
while.
that's right.
Yeah, so you'll have to keep working for a long time with those kids.
That's
let me
right.
assure you.
That's right. And so that's fun to have kids and look forward to getting them kind of
encourage them to continue
Right.
to stay in Washington County, or at least come back to Washington County,
right. So
and keep us moving forward.
that's right.
And so you've done a good job at that, and so I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And be sure and tell all the family hello,
Will
and to tune in to Channel 6.
Will do. Well, we appreciate you guys covering the county and making note of these recognitions. It's an honor to serve in it, and we appreciate all you guys do.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you.